Hello there and welcome to this week's episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. This week on the show is Ben Hornsby. Ben is a transformational coach who operates out of Bali but has gone through a story journey involving addiction, substance abuse and bouts of depression to being able to be in a place today where he can help people with those kind of challenges having come through to the other side. We do go off the beaten track a bit in this week's episode, so instead of just talking about music, of which there is still a lot of in the episode, we do talk about things like addiction formation and essentially kind of a coaching best practices primer or taster, you could say. It still makes for a great conversation with loads of threads to explore and discover therewith. As a reminder, you can check out the other replays of the show on my YouTube channel, Inner Peace Walker TV, and on all major podcast platforms. And I'd love it for you to be a guest on the show as well. Just look out for a sign-up form anywhere on those channels, or indeed just message me on a social media platform to get involved. So without further ado, enjoy the show and feel supersonic. Hello there and welcome to another session of Soundtrack of Your Life. If you're familiar to the show, you'll know what this is by now, and if this is your first time, welcome on board. This is essentially the show where we bring together music in your life, so whether that's songs, albums, soundtracks, bands, theme tunes, whatever it may be, to the stories, the people, the events, the scenarios, the moments in your life. Because I believe that we've all got stories to tell when it comes to this kind of thing, you know, whether it's the first dance at your wedding, or the first album you ever bought, or the song that reminds you of your college days, or your special person in your life. I'm sure we've all got stuff to share, so this is the show to share them on. My guest today is Ben Hornsby. I've been looking forward to this one, as have a lot of people, to hear about his story journey through life. You know, Ben at the moment is a transformation coach and has come through a lot of challenges and stuff in his life, of which music is an integral part. So, Ben, welcome to the show. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and literally kick off with your first song.
Well, I'll introduce myself first. So, my name is Ben Hornsby. I'm from Oxfordshire, a little village from Oxfordshire. So, I've had quite a dark past. I was sexually abused when I was 10, and I got into drugs really early when I was 16, heroin. And my lowest point was hitting rock bottom of homelessness, street begging. Then I tried to commit suicide, but luckily I got into rehab. So the first song that comes to mind is actually Born Slippy by Underworld, because I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched that. It kind of reminds me of my life.
Wow.
Because that's what I used to be. Because that...
Is there anything in particular about the song, or when you first heard it? What struck you about it?
Well, it just reminded me of my life, because it was all about drug addicts, heroin addicts, trying to fight the disease of addiction. Well, if you believe it's a disease or whatever, do you know what I mean? And it's a song I actually like the song as well.
It's a very significant, powerful number, I feel, because instantly when anyone says the title, or you just hear the first notes of it, right? The sort of faded out, synthesized, echoey keyboard. You just know straight away what the song is, right? It's got that unique intro. And then, you know, even from a lyrical point of view, when I remember starting it, right, it seems like a stream of consciousness. You know, drag boy, dog boy, dirty gnome, angel boy. It's like, okay, what is this all about? And then it goes builds and builds and builds until you get that really kind of club-like beat and anthem. And again, the echoey vocal. So it's, you know, it's really... a powerful number, I think.
Yeah, and also at the end there's like a successful ending. One of them gets clean and does well. Do you know what I mean? And it reminds me of me, because that's what I've done. I managed to do the impossible that I thought it was impossible, and completely transformed my life to be. Sometimes I pinch myself to be where I am now, to be honest with you.
Do you remember when you first heard it?
Probably when I was high on drugs, mate. Yeah.
Wow.
But now I live in Bali, transformational coach, and I also do lots of other online work. You could say I'm living life beyond my wildest dreams because I don't really know many other people who've been through what I've been through that are doing what I'm doing now. There are some, but there's not many.
Well, quite, and as I said, in the promos, etc., through this, you've led a storied life. You know, in even the introduction, you shared, you know, some of the challenges and things you've been through, and as I said,
Yeah.
have come out the other side to a place where you can help other people now. I think, you know, people resonate with, you know, where you've come from, and B, the steps you can help them with in their own journey,
Yeah.
which is quite a cool
You
thing.
know, even though I was a drug addict, that the real me wasn't an evil person. Even though I'd done some bad things in addiction, I know the real person, the real me, was an evil person. So now I'm clean. I'm a great believer. What you give, you get back. Yeah, and it can come back in many forms. To me, normally it's just a spiritual well-being that I can help people now. Yes, it's a lovely feeling when somebody says, "Thank you, Ben. You've helped transform my life." To me, that's probably one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Absolutely, it's an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
It comes for me. It comes from a sense of, you know, I talk a lot about my coaching that we're not here to sort of lecture people or talk down to them or
No.
even sort of teach anything. It's more kind of like, it's the realization that you actually have a lot of your answers already, but it's in places that you might find it difficult to go back to, which is natural because, you know, they're suppressed and away for a reason. Your subconscious kicking in with self-protection, but when you're able to help people unlock those answers, and as you said, leads them to find their own transformation, and they vocalize that back to you, it's very worthwhile.
And I'd just like to add, I'm not an addictions coach, right? Because I'm not a therapist, right? I'm a transformational coach, but I've done more therapy than probably what most therapists knows. So I was trained by the coaching masters. I've done a course, and I learned a lot of stuff from them. But I've added some of my therapeutic values to my coaching. And I always say to my clients, I'm not a therapist, but all I'm going to do is share with you what's helped transform with me. In most of it, self-love, learning to love yourself, learning to approve of yourself, find purpose, passion, and motivation in life, and direction in life, and that's it, really.
Do you think there's
That's
then
my...
Do you think there's a distinction between, as you said, you don't necessarily specialize in addiction, you specialize in transformation. What to you is the difference between the two? Like some specialize in addiction coaching.
Well, because I'm not a therapist,
Okay.
Because I'm not a therapist, I'm not in a position to say, like, this is what you should do, this is what you know what I mean, do this, do that. But because I've transformed from a 22-year heroin addict, homeless street beggar, suicidal maniac, people are inspired by that and they want to know how I've done it. And simply how I've done it is through practicing self-love, not in an egotistical way. I used to hate myself. I was suicidal. But when I started to practice self-love in doing certain techniques like mirror work, positive affirmations, gratitude lists, stuff like that, that worked for me. Fortunately, it doesn't work for everybody. You know, so sometimes what works for me won't work for everybody else. Do you know what I mean? So that's the difference. Do you know what I mean? That's
Well,
what
absolutely.
I do.
I mean, look,
If
each
that makes
person,
sense.
very much so. I mean, people mistake the whole, I think, self-development space is like very textbook based, very kind of like one technique or size fits all. But really, your own journey is your own. I saw a couple of posts yesterday echoing the same sentiment, where like people might fall into the trap of thinking, right, if I just do this once or overnight, it's going to fix it. And then they fall into things like disillusionment or skepticism, where they're like, well, this doesn't really work. But it's about not just taking everything you take on at face value, going, oh, if it's just about affirmations or mirror work or whatever practice, it's like, okay, just do that. It's like, well, no, you could look at these concepts and think, no, that's rubbish. That doesn't really work for me. I don't really resonate with that. That's okay. Take from it what you will. And then from there, you begin to go, okay, this part of this technique would work for me. This doesn't, you know, because this isn't about taking on everything that you see. Like, you know, our space is filled with so many different ways of self-development, there's holistic therapies, there's hypnotherapy, there's
so
all
many.
sorts, exactly, all sorts. And it's not about going, right, I need to know everything, I need to try everything. It's about, okay, you could still have that natural, like, well, not so sure about that. You don't, then to me it comes to balance. You don't have to then denigrate it going, no, that's rubbish. Anybody that follows that kind of thing is an idiot. To be honest, I come from a place where you see that from a lot of people where they say, don't do that, do this instead. You're wrong, do this. It's like, look, everyone's trying to find their own way, what works for them. There's enough space for everybody. And to be honest, there's no right or wrong, because your journey is your own. So, this is the beauty of the stories that we share. They're our own. We're not telling people this is the gospel, this will work for you. As you mentioned it yourself, it's about, look, these are the possibilities.
Yeah, like you say, they're just concepts. There's so many different concepts for addiction. You know what I mean? There's 4,600 gods. They're all different concepts. You know what I mean? Whatever works for you, works for you. I try and take the good out of everything. That's what I do now. I try and avoid all negativity and just focus on the positive in the self-love kind of things, And I still do it today. I look in that mirror and I say, Ben, I love you. I approve of you. And I love you. It's very simple. My favourite affirmation is, Ben, I love you. I approve of you. I love life, and life loves you. Because once you start practicing this stuff, at the beginning, it does seem a bit like this ain't going to work. But after a while, once you start seeing it work, then all of a sudden you start making new friends. Then you start talking about what you like. Then all of a sudden somebody says, hang on, I could do with somebody like you. Then you make more new friends. Your life just seems to just go in a positive direction. If you're somebody that moans and complains about everything, generally you're just sitting in a pretty rubbish life, unfortunately.
But I think that's an important distinction you make there, actually, of like, it's not just about the affirmation repeating and then you think that's it. It's like, well, with the words, it's a bit of a cliched or often spoke perspective from our space, is that you need to align that with action. But what that means is, but I think the confusion, or where people slip up, is that they say it or phrase that way of doing things is like, right, I have to do something. So they put their self-worth or their feelings at ransom. So it's like, if I don't do this thing, then I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I have no willpower, I'm indecisive, this kind of thing. When really, those kind of affirmations are a start and a clue to what you can do. Because when you have an affirmation like that, you're not going to go, right, I'm going to make friends today, I'm going to do that. Those things come as a natural byproduct of the view that you say. So really, that affirmation is your self-talk going, no, you are good enough, you have good parts about you. You might not be practicing them enough, but they are there. You mentioned it yourself at the very beginning, you're not an evil person. No. But it took you that work, the practice, the consistency to see it, of which then came, look, your journey with, you mentioned the coaching masters. For those who are unfamiliar, it's a sort of a coaching academy or practice that trains up coaches and has got a thriving community on that kind of thing. And you made the connections and friendships through that. So it's always about I always term this kind of work as a gentle kind of thing, because we've had a lot in our life of taking orders and dictatums and the whole, right, I have to do this. But really, when you just gently ask yourself, going, okay, what can we dig into on here? Yeah. That might be a better way to go.
And another thing, when you practice these self-affirmations and you do start to love yourself, what you find is you start to love life. Yeah, you start to do things like you never do before, like say to a street sweeper, thanks, mate. I'm really grateful that you do that, because you probably don't want to do it, but thank you. Yeah. And you start being kinder to people. Yeah. And then people start to like you, and you start to distance yourself from negativity. So you're not around negativity now. And it's weird. I don't know if it's the law of attraction, life, God, or whatever. It just seems to take you in a positive path of niceness, like you say.
It's a really nice way of putting it, because that, I think, is that one level that, when you start practicing it, that's what you see. I mean, people talk about, doing, kind things for other people without expecting something back. You're just doing it to be nice. Then people put a tag on of that saying, is that just necessarily like validation for yourself? Is that kind of self-affirming? And there are components of that mixed into it, but the next level of possibility you can have with that is that you just do these things as a natural byproduct. You don't have to actually think, right, I'll try and be kind to someone today. It might start with that. So you might hear a podcast, a radio show, a TV episode of going, go out of your way to do something kind to someone today. That's a start. But then when you naturally start doing these things, so that's just in line with your values or how you behave, and what also then comes is like, it doesn't necessarily matter what comes back to me. You're not trying, and also you're getting away from like the, like a karmic list. If I do all this good, then I should get it back. You may believe in things like the universal law of attraction, karma, all this kind of thing. But to me, it's all about fitting with your values, and that's one of the first steps people can do. What are your values? Now people go, I don't know, but look, there's multiple lists that people can access online or anywhere where they can, take a look and go, right, which one of these naturally go, oh yeah, that's me, or that's something I display a lot, but you don't know it at the moment because they're just not practiced. That's what it starts from, because a lot of what we do, if they're not in line with our values, not going to work.
And a lot of the stuff you're talking about, like gratitude lists, values lists and stuff like that, most very successful men on the planet actually do that.
Oh, men and women, anybody.
Yeah, men and women, sorry. Yeah. They all do it. They talk about it.
Exactly.
It works.
It's small. Exactly. And it's small practices. But again, somebody might listen or watch this and go, what are you going on about? Really? That's fair enough. I know. We're not here to say this is right, this is wrong. It's just about possibilities.
Yeah.
And, I think when you step into the whole, you should be doing this, that's when people naturally switch off, because there's that inner self-protection coming through again. Your subconscious going, hang on, what are you actually trying to do here? And that's where it's protecting you to make sure you don't come to harm or fear of the unknown, call it what you will, but these possibilities are there. So just to bring it back to the point of music, so we started with a great track in Born Slippy. You mentioned in our little catch up beforehand, you had some more songs that remind you of certain people, certain places.
About 6, I think.
Yeah, go for it. So if you wanted to share those.
So I thought you was going to play them, so you're not going to play them. That's fine.
No, so, unfortunately, I was tempted to play them, but I'm thinking, things like copyright and all that kind of thing.
Get that.
People might get a bit funny about it. So stories about it.
So my second one is "Take Me Home, Country Roads." I can't remember the name of the singer.
Okay.
Take me home, country roads, West Virginia. It reminds me of my childhood, because I was brought up in the Cotswolds, and it just reminds me of my childhood. Like it was my home, and it's just a song that reminds me of the countryside, because it's a country song. So that was why. Because before my childhood got crap, it was really good. I used to go fishing. I used to play on the hay bales and things like that, climb, conquer trees, conquer fights and stuff like this. And it just reminds me of home. And also, it's got another meaning to it. A friend of mine went to Thailand. It was his favourite song. And he died in Thailand. So it's got another feeling. It's got another, like, an emotion to me as well. It was his favourite song. So it's got two meanings, really.
I see. So when did you first hear the song in childhood? Was it like, a parent's favourite or...
It wasn't childhood. It was actually when my friend kept replaying up and repeat. He was driving me mad. He kept replaying, and he used to sing it. And he was quite a good singer, because he's a Romany gypsy. But he used to keep singing it live. And I said, one night, mate, I said, please shut up. But in the end, I actually liked the song. And then it
just got stuck in your head that much. It's like, right, I might as well have this as a favourite.
So I started listening to it after he died. Then it started reminding me of home. And it also reminds me of here a little bit of home. It's all countryside. Because this is my home now, Bali. And I actually really love the song now.
What is it about the song? Is it the lyrical meanings to it? Is the music about it?
I can't remember the exact words, but just the words "Take me home, country roads." Do you know what I mean? It's the word. I don't know the whole, but if you listen to it, it's quite a really nice song.
I like that. A simple sentiment, "Take me home." I think that's where, at the end of the day, we're all looking for somewhere that is home, whether that's where you are or you're not there at the moment and you want to go back. It's a nice It's a nice sentiment to have, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to carry on with the next song, just work your way
So
through
the
them,
next
really.
song is when I was in prison.
Okay.
It's called Akon Locked Up. While I was in
Uh,
prison, I liked that song because obviously I was locked up. At the
hmm.
time, I really liked the song. I wouldn't say I like it so much now because I've heard it so many times. But
Yeah.
back then, I liked it because I was in prison for drug dealing, unfortunately. So I got into a lot of criminality back then when I was a lost, confused child.
Mm.
Yeah, and that had a bit of meaning to me back then. It doesn't really have much meaning to me now because I'm free. Uh, but that
Oh,
was
wow.
another song I've thought of. And the next song has a lot of meaning to me because it was my little brother was killed and four family members was killed. But my little brother's favourite song was Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Eva Cassidy, which I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
wow.
most people would have heard. It was his favourite song and it was played at his funeral. And it's one of them songs that I play on repeat over and over and over. It's such a beautiful song, you know.
Wow.
We played it in his funeral and it was his favourite song. Yeah, so that has a big meaning to me. But that's something that I've overcome now. You know what I mean? I've overcome that demon because when he died, I nearly destroyed myself through
Mm.
insanity of taking drugs. So my next song after that would be "Dear Mama" by Tupac. So when I was in addiction, raving addiction, I always worried about my mum because she always worried about me. Um, And I was worried about her worrying about me because she used to see how ill I looked. But that song that he sung was about his mama. It was a beautiful song, and it just reminds me of my mum. And it used to make me cut up a little bit and tear up because it's such a beautiful song about his mum. And I always used to worry about my mum worrying about me. So that was that one.
I mean, just on that, it's nice that, while you were going through such a difficult and dark time, you could still relate back to that core human element of connection. As you said, you're worrying about someone
Yeah,
worrying. And,
yeah,
I think typically that's something mums and familial figures in life tend to do, right? They just naturally worry about
yeah,
other people. They mind about themselves. It's like, I speak the same for mine. I'm sure loads of listeners and viewers will
yeah,
resonate with the same. But yeah, it's that even in those darkest, difficult moments, it's quite remarkable how we default back to that. It's like I've encountered many a time too, where like you're facing difficult, challenging, tough moments where you're trying to process something that's going on in your space, but immediately you just think about how other people close to
yeah,
you may be thinking or worrying, and you
yeah,
don't want to add to their worries, even though you've got all this going on.
yeah.
So it's cool that you're able to do that, even
You know,
in
what it
when
was,
you
she used to
yeah.
visit me. She used to
Oh,
give me money, but she used to see me in such a terrible state. I'm nearly 6 foot tall, 8.5 stone, full of heroin needle marks. And she used to give me money and it used to break my heart when she used to leave because she was crying, you
mm,
know. And I always used to worry about my mum. Like, I worried about her worrying about me. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really care about anything else, but I did always worry about my mum worrying about me. She used to say, "Please come home," but I was too far gone with the drugs. I just couldn't because I'd have had to go through a terrible detox, and I was too scared. Do you know what I mean?
wow, that's a powerful share. But look, hey, look, you've come
Yeah,
out on the other side of it, right? I mean,
yeah,
the fact that you're able to go through all that, and I sometimes wonder if those kind of things and connections are things that subliminally keep us going.
mm,
Like even again the other day I was talking to somebody and we were talking about the idea that humans are capable of surviving on their own through whether
yeah,
that's experience or whatever. But I guess we're not meant to be like that. Ultimately, we are a tribal species, and
yeah,
we have that inherent need for connection to other people.
yeah,
So whether that's a partner, family, siblings, friends, whomever, um, when we don't feel we have that, as much as the work we can do, a lot of our space is about your own like self responsibility, and you're able to cope with other people not being around or whatever it might be. But inherently, this like, well, I always come back to that difficult for me question of like, well, if we've got a need for connection, yet a lot of our work is ensconced in take your own responsibility for what's going on. You don't have
absolutely.
to lie or blame or victimize other people inherently for
Yeah.
it. But then we have a need for connection to people. So whether that's trying to find a partner or increasing your I don't know, quality of relationship of friends. It's like, I posted today about connecting to people. I made the irony is we've got as many means to contact people nowadays than we've ever had, yet things like loneliness and not feeling good enough and self-doubt are on the rise, which is a bit ironic. If we just make the time to connect with people, you serve that connection for each other. You're not reaching out to because it's like a do-good list or anything like that. It's like, well,
no,
just checking in on people. The simple thing of connecting with each other.
Yeah, see, I get a lot of people reaching out to me that can't afford my coaching, right? But I do generally, when I can, because obviously my time's limited, I will reach out to them to say how's things going. You know what I mean? How you feeling now? I said, if you want if you want to go into a free rehab, I'm connected to loads in the UK. I know loads of free services and different things, because sometimes people just want to talk. Do you know what I mean? They don't want to be told. They don't need the
advice.
They just want to release something off their chest. Do you know what I mean? So it lightens that burden, kind of thing.
Absolutely, and that's the balance that we as people on the other side have to strike. If you will, we're not there to be a white knight, just trying to fix all their problems and all this kind of thing. It's like they just need a pair of ears to, as you said, vent to express to. Just only to give their thoughts and feelings some airtime, so they're not just bottling it up for themselves, right? So it is a struggle. We're not saying overnight you're going to be an expert of just listening, because there's always a part of us that are significant and ego driven. We want to try and improve them. We want to try and give them advice. We want to tell them what to do, even though they didn't ask for that. So everybody means well when they do that kind of thing. We're not saying you're wrong and you shouldn't do this, but it's just being mindful. And that actually comes back to something I mentioned before in my own space about depression. If sometimes when we hear people saying I feel depressed, a lot of us go, oh, what have you got to be depressed about? You got loads going on in your life, and Again, it means well. We're trying to, I guess, encourage or G up the other person. But the underlying message they might be receiving in that state is right, you feel shit or bad enough and not good enough in the first place, and hence feeling depressed. Now you're getting the message that it's not good enough to feel depressed, because we're saying, oh, you don't need to feel depressed, or you shouldn't feel depressed. So you're basically rejecting what you're feeling anyway. So now you're depressed about being depressed, but now you're depressed about being depressed about being depressed. You perpetuate the own cycle going. When really, if we can just start with, well, feeling depressed is okay. In fact, probably everybody, to some degree, or on the range, will have the same kind of thoughts. Yet, if we can start being a little bit more connecting with each other, then we can share that kind of thing, rather than just go, right, I better not share this because it's going to make me look weird, or people won't get it, and because you easily just retreat back into yourself, right? So
it's like what you said about the thoughts. Depression comes from thoughts. Do you know what I mean? Because it's what you think about yourself. This is what I was taught in rehab. First of all, you have a thought, whether it's negative or positive. Then you have a feeling. So then it'll either be a negative or positive feeling, and then it's a behavior. Then whether it's a negative, positive behavior. So if you think you're overweight, lazy, ugly, and good for nothing, and nobody loves you, and you think that, then you're going to get a negative thought, and then you're going to get a behavior where you're probably going to isolate. But really, thoughts are not really true. Really, they're just collections of memories, thoughts, and experiences. So when I was in rehab and I thought I was a piece of crap, and I said to them, I'm thick, I'm useless. And they said, well, tell us all about your thoughts. And I said, well, I was a junkie, I was I'm thick, blah, 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 blah. And they said, well, you can't be that thick because you've got yourself into rehab. So I'd say you was rather intelligent. So that thought of you feeling like you was thick, you've believed that all your life, but really, deep down, you're quite an intelligent individual. And I'd say you was honest because there's not many people in here would admit what you've just admitted. So you're honest. So my gratitude, my values list was honesty, courageousness. Do you know what I mean? And it grew and grew and grew and grew. So a lot of the times, people, what the trouble is, we're not taught this at school, yeah. And I reckon probably half the people in society don't even know this about our thoughts, yeah. So a lot of the stuff we think are not true. A lot of the stuff we worry about don't happen. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good one.
I'm doing a video tomorrow about anxiety. A lot of people think anxiety is bad. Well, I've learned through rehab, it's only a concept, so you don't have to believe me. But I learned in rehab, anxiety, I'm blessed with it because it gives me, so basically anxiety is worry of the future. Yeah, you can't be anxious of the past. You can only be anxious of the future. So you're worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet, right? But say, for instance, like I'm doing this now, and I was really anxious about it, thinking, is he going to think I'm a fool? Am I going to stutter? Am I going to say something stupid? And say, for instance, I didn't do it. Now I've gone away. Now I'm going to call myself a coward. I'm useless. I'm a weakling. But now I've come and done it. I've stepped into the anxiety and I've got personal growth. And that is that now I know I can do lives. I can speak freely. And there's always a reward by stepping into your anxiety. So that's why I label it as good. I don't label it as good or bad. I label it as something to just grow through. But where you're brought up in society, you say to your mum as a child, well, I'm worried about something. So they send you to the doctor. The doctor's going to give you a tablet for anxiety. Okay, it suppresses it for about 5 years. Doesn't take it away. You stop the tablet after 5 years. Guess what? Anxiety's still there. So it's done nothing really. It's just suppressed it for a few years. So I'm not telling people to stop taking anxiety tablets, but there is a way of beating anxiety without taking tablets by slowly setting little goals to step outside your comfort zone each time. Set a little goal that frightens you a little bit, then set another little goal that frightens you a little bit. And what you'll find is what you've worried about all your life or been anxious about all your life wasn't even true anyway. And that's what I was taught in one of the best rehabs in the country. But like I say, it's only a concept. I'm not telling people to stop taking drugs now. If they're on medication, don't do that. But there are ways of dealing with anxiety if you stop labeling them as bad. They're neither good nor bad.
I mean, I think people watching or listening should just rewind the last 2.5 minutes to get all the value that Ben just said. Really, I mean, where do you even start?
Well, can I explain it in a different way?
Yeah, please go for it.
If I got time. Do you know when a baby's born? Let's say God's real. When a baby's born, what does a baby do when it's born? It smiles or screams the house down, doesn't it? The hospital down. So it's got two feelings. It's either happiness or sadness or anger. Nobody would say, oh, it's really angry. That's a negative feeling, would they? Nobody would say that to a newborn baby. Nobody would do it. But what happens is when we grow up, we learn different things. We worry about different things. Then we get labeled with these feelings of depression, anxiety, and whatever. And you go to the doctors. People think it's bad. They give you medication. But I class myself as still a newborn baby. I've just got a new feeling, to work through. Do you know what I mean? In a way, we're all perfect as we are, I'm not saying this in an egotistical way. I'm just saying we're all perfect as we are. We're all trying to do the best we can with the understanding and the awareness that we got of what we've learned through society. Do you know what I mean?
Perfectly put. It resonates with my messaging too. The idea that at the heart of it, every emotion that we feel is first of all neutral, We're the ones that apply meaning to it from our programming experiences in the past, and what we feel is natural. So you mentioned a baby, right? If everyone thinks of babies and young children, they will display whatever they're feeling straight away. It's not going to go, oh, hang on, I'm in a crowd, I better not, disturb the peace or shout or anything. If it's feeling sad, hungry, happy, whatever, it will let you know through screaming, crying, stamping their feet, making a display. All those things that we as adults go, shh, sort of trying to calm it down.
Yeah.
So the messaging that you get from that is like, you felt a natural emotion, like anger, sadness, crying, grief, whatever, but we got told by our caregivers that that's not acceptable, and therefore we file it in our not acceptable filing list, or whatever analogy you want to use there. So that's where we discern between positive and negative emotions. So if we carry that on into our adolescence, our adulthood, where we've got all these unsolved programming experiences and emotions that we feel are not acceptable, that are stored in places like our shadow. Coming back to your idea about anxiety, that's exactly one of the ways that are possible for us to work with it. The idea that you're feeling anxious about something that may not have happened yet, so we preclude, like, oh shit, this is going to go wrong, this is going to not be great. One of the practices that I'm heard from my coaching is that ask yourself, can you get comfortable with the worst thing that could happen? The absolute worst thing anything can happen is that you die from whatever it is you're doing. But that's good, if you take a step back and go, right, that's going to be incredibly rare, or a very, very, very unique set of circumstances. The next worst thing that could happen, so like the analogy my coach used was, imagine yourself trying to do stand-up comedy for the first time. You're going to go on stage with a bunch of strangers and tell some jokes. So what's the worst thing that can happen? So people go, well, they might not like my jokes, I might forget the jokes, they might not laugh, they'll heckle me, I'll forget my routine, all that kind of stuff. He's like, yeah, all valid. But the worst thing that could probably happen, apart from dying, is that you shit yourself. You go on stage and you literally void your bowels and you crap yourself. And immediately you think, oh shit, no, I don't want that to happen, that's going to be embarrassing, that's going to be terrible. It's like, it would be, of course it would be, but again, how likely is it to happen? Unless you have some very, very dodgy food beforehand or anything like that, or a real bad attack of nerves. He goes, the way you can think of it this way is, you've now got a funny joke or routine to tell for your next gig, where you can go, look, first time I did this, I've shat myself on stage. Or the audience, and also the audience now have a joke to tell their mates, saying, I went down the comedy club or wherever, and this guy crapped himself on stage. So really, there's no harm or benefit all round. So again, even with that being unlikely to happen, if you're comfortable with that happening, then actually what ends up happening doesn't matter, because the worst thing didn't happen. So little methodology, a way to tackle it, and go, then naturally you begin to do things that will lend you to being successful. So you might practice your jokes, you might check out the stage and other performers, ask them for advice, how did you tackle it? So anxiety is okay. It's okay to be nervous. You don't have to go, I'm not nervous, it's excitement. No. If you're anxious, it's okay. It's what you feel about anxiety that is the issue, and that's going to come from the programming experiences you had in life that made you feel it's not okay to be anxious. Now, there's various routes and paths to explore about that, but the sentiment you gave about, look, it's all about, giving yourself some action, little by little, that you begin to go, okay, I can do things. I'm not just useless and this and that and the other. And sometimes, it takes someone else to go, well, you might have said, as you said in rehab, you said yourself, I'm thick, I don't really get it, this kind of thing. But then other people turned around and said to you that, like, well, you're here, and you've got the courage and the want, which are the two things you need to start your self-development journey with. You've got. So, they're not denying that, to feel how you felt is okay. We're not here to change or flip things around or dismiss what you've been through. Because if you felt that at the time, that's okay. But now you've got other possibilities to explore.
And see, I still have anxiety,
Exactly. It doesn't go away.
Right?
It's there.
I have it, right? But I'm happy that I have it. So I'll give you an example. My coach, Lewis, my personal coach, says, because I'm introvert, I like my own peace. He said, I think you need to start going out more. do one of these breathwork sessions in Bali. And I thought it was just going to be a bit of laying down, breathing, and that's it, yeah? Right? 30 people in there, and I thought, oh my God. And I thought, all right, well, I'm going to put myself right amongst them, yeah? And I'm not very good at dancing unless I'm on drugs. We had to do all these stupid, like, trantic dancing or whatever it is.
Tantric dancing.
We had to look in each other's eyes, go, wee-hee-ha, and all this.
Okay.
This is the sort of stuff I don't like. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. And at the end of it, I made some good friends. Do you know what I mean? If I hadn't done it, I'd have beat myself up. So there's always a reward by stepping into that comfort zone, stepping outside your comfort zone. Always a reward. Always.
If you're lucky enough, there will be one. But again, going back to what we said before, this doesn't mean you can watch or listen to this and go, right, I'm going to book a tantric yoga or dance session that's near me soon. It's about, right, if you're watching or listening to this and going, nah, mate, I don't agree, that's okay. You don't have to fight it going, well, if he's doing it, then I've got to do it. It's like, no. Honestly, when you said that analogy, people that are familiar with the show Peep Show, I remember that sketch where Mark Corrigan is playing around and throwing his arms about with that skepticism going on. So this is not about, as we said, taking on everything that we say in our space. It's, as you say, it's like what works for you, what's gonna give your subconscious a bit more proof as to what's going on. That's all that it is. Give yourself that opportunity, basically. Yeah,
and basically everything I taught is not what I've decided in my brain that works. It's what I was taught in a rehab, and this rehab was based around the science of how the brain works. You got psychotherapists, hypnotherapists, psychoanalysts. You got all of them teaching you all these different things: inner child work, acceptance commitment therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. So what I teach is not what I've decided; it's what I've learned. It's a concept. It's a different concept. There's many different rehabs that do many different kinds of teachings. Do you know what I mean? But this one happened to work for me, fortunately. There were 17 of us in there. There's 3 of us still alive. The rest have all gone. Most of them are gone and died because they didn't grasp the concept. You've got to do the internal work. But that's the unfortunate thing with addiction, you see. It's not many make it, and I'm fortunate to have made it.
I mean, it's if we can keep helping them and keep showing the possibilities to people, hopefully that kind of stats and figures.
Yeah, and that's why I'm very passionate about addiction, and I will coach people for free if they're rock bottom and they can't afford it, and I've got a bit of time, I will coach them for free. But I will say to them, look, I can't give you the time that I give a paid client, but I will give you a couple of hours a week. To try and help you. But generally what happens when people don't pay, they don't value it, and eventually they drift off. And that's all I can do is the best I can. But I do offer free coaching as well, because I'm a great believer, what you give, you get back, And if somebody gave to me I gave to somebody one day, and he gave back to me, and it created me the most best life I've ever experienced, and that's being here. Do you know what I mean? So I'm a great believer in doing that.
So while you've brought the subject up there, so we may not have time for a full sort of rundown, but if you were to begin to work with someone that, let's say they came from a perspective of they think they might have an addiction, but they're not sure, but these are the impacts that it's having for them. They outline, maybe their typical usage of something and the feelings they get from whatever. So how do you go about, the first steps from someone that comes to you with that kind of challenge?
What, finding out if they're an addict or not?
Yeah, pretty much. Where they're not sure.
I would say to them, how many times a week are you drinking or taking drugs? And if they say every day, I'd say you're probably an addict, But you don't just have to be an everyday drug taker to be an addict. You could be a binge drinker at the weekend. You could spend all week working, waiting for the weekend, and just go on a massive binge. They're called binge drinking addicts, Yeah. But generally, what I will say to him, why are you actually taking these drugs? I have to be careful because I could take somebody back to somewhere where they don't want to talk about. So I say, you don't have to answer this, but why are you taking? Some people don't even know why they're doing it. But generally, it's because they don't like themselves somewhere along the lines. To me, drug addiction is you don't love yourself. The cure is learn to love yourself.
Powerful. But,
Yeah.
you know, you've summed up, I guess, that journey in a very succinct line. You know, it's the idea of, you know, often, you know, whatever addiction is, and people, you know, think of an addiction immediately, oh, that must be like drink, drugs, gambling, sex, those kind of things, those headline statements or addictions. But what about things like, you know, spending too much time on your phone, judging people, shopping, surfing the web? You know, these are ones that often display the same things, but are less talked about or funnily dismissed as, oh, haha, I'm addicted to shopping or chocolate. It's like, yeah, but there's still the issue, as you said, of self-worth tagged to it. You know, it's the addiction is a form of escapism. So that natural question to what you say is, why are you taking them in the first place? And as I say, it's probably not the time and space to go through how you neurologically form the addiction in the first place, but it comes back to that idea of, you said, the more you can understand about yourself and untie it. And the real benefit can be that, like, sometimes, well, in the space that I operate, is that we don't even have to talk about the addiction in the first place. That you will get off that addiction, if you will.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's funny you say that. When I was in rehab, they very rarely mentioned drugs. Drugs are not the problem. We are.
There you go. There you go.
Do you know what I mean? And I had a debate, kind of a bit of a debate with somebody the other day. I said, "Why do you drink?" He said, "To make myself feel better, or because I'm bored." But I said, if you felt comfortable in your skin anyway, and you was comfortable with yourself, you wouldn't need to take something to feel better. So there must be something going on with you that doesn't make you feel too good. Maybe it is boredom. Boredom is a big one. Or is there something deeper? And I was nearly getting somewhere with him. Then he just cut off the live.
Oh.
So I think I hit a nerve.
Something came out of his shadow at that point then.
Yeah. But obviously, I can't take people too far. I was being gentle with him. The more questions I asked, we was getting somewhere. Then he just cut off the live.
Yeah, look, that's okay. Sometimes people, as you said, they come to a place where they're not ready to go into. And that's okay. We're not here to shove them down that, you know, exploration path. It's like, look, a lot of this work has got to be led, well, in fact, all of the work has got to be led by the person involved. As we said before, we're not here to lecture or to teach or to give you the answers. Well, that's the other person's department. Yeah, and then that's people, some skeptics might say, yeah, but aren't you meant to, you know, ask the right questions and do this and that? It's like, yeah, that's our perspective of being there with them. We're not going to abandon them on this journey, but we're not going to say, right, do this and then do that. It's like, well, the suggestions are here. Like, again, my coach had a great analogy of, well, imagine you buy a fancy looking house, looks all good, all the latest, you know, updates and all that kind of thing, but it's very wobbly, and it's wobbly because the foundations are, you know, in need of repair. So you could, you know, do new paint and wallpaper and get all the new tech and stuff in, so it looks good on the outside. So, you know, it's these things that people get themselves involved in, you know, escapism things, like maybe an addiction, like, you know, avoiding what's going on. But one day your house is going to fall down unless you fix that foundation. So the foundation work is what we're talking about. But he said the foundations are in the basement, and there's a door to the basement and it's locked, and you're the only person with the key. I don't have the key, you do. So you're the only one that can lock the door, go down there and fix. I can come with you. I don't have the key. It won't open for me. So it's the way you approach these things of, like, you know, that's where that, you know, where we tie in that perspective of take your own responsibility again. It's not to say, right, you do all the work and you're on your own. No, it's like, well, if you want your change, you're the one that has to lead us through it, because that's where you'll get your transformation. Because, you know, as much as you might look at, you know, social media or a coach or whomever and have light bulb moments going, oh yeah, or oh shit, or this kind of things, like, that's the spark. That's the spark that we go, right, what does that look like for me? That's a lot of what when I work with my coach, that's what a lot of moments
I really like what you said, where you don't tell people how to live their life. You don't coach people how to do things. You ask them almost like thought-provoking questions, so they bring new thoughts into their awareness, that they probably never thought of before. And say, for instance, let's just give a simple example, say an overweight person. So you say, okay, you're overweight. What could you do today to improve your weight? And she could say, well, I could probably walk to the shop. Okay, great. Write that down. Maybe I could go to the gym next week, go swimming. Okay, great. Write that down. Yeah. And what you've done is you've not told them what to do. They've thought of it themselves. So it's empowering to them. So we're not really coaching them. They're coaching themselves. You know what I mean? So
they
it's
have the
empowering
answers
to them. Then you reward them. You say, well done, because you've done this on your own. I've only asked you a question.
Again, flows in the other components again. Give credit to yourself for what you do. And as I said, they've got the answers already, which might need some question to it. You know, on the flip side, you could ask someone with a weight loss goal saying, what's the next step you can do today? And they go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the temptation there is to give them advice, like, well, how about this? How about that? It's like, now we're slipping into advice territory. But the question you could wind yourself back on is, okay, why do you want to lose weight in the first place? The why is important, because often we do things not knowing why. Similar to your point from addiction, you take stuff but you don't know why. Until we ask ourselves why. And it's okay to sometimes not want the thing we said we wanted. A lot of people then label ourselves like, oh, I'm indecisive, I don't know what I want, and I'm this and that. It's like, but knowing what you don't want is a good start. And if it's against the grain of what other people have around you, that's the counterintuitive part of all this, because we're in a world today where we look to get what everybody else has, in an education, a job, a career, a relationship, a family, a car, all those what I call the master plan things. And if you don't have that, it's like, right, I better get that quick, because that's what I should be doing. But you never ask yourself, well, why? It's not to say, again, it's the balance. We're not saying be a nomad and do completely everything on your own and sod society and all that kind of thing. No, it's about, okay, well, ask yourself, what do you want? And if that takes time to ask or for you to figure out, that's also okay. So if coming back to weight loss, it's like, well, do you want to lose weight because you want to, or are you losing weight or wanting to lose weight because someone in your family or your partner said, well, you're looking a bit podgy there, you need to lose some pounds. And you've gone, fuck, I better do something about that. Or have you gone, actually, okay, I know I'm not in the best of shapes, but do I want this thing right now? Not really. Then your subconscious goes, all right, okay, I hear that. As opposed to trying to force through a fitness regime, gym regime, exercise regime. And the irony is, a lot of people are quick to tell you, oh, it'd be good for you, it'd be good for your mind, and this is the core of it, and da-da-da. It's like, okay, great. I can listen to you and go, I understand the words you're saying. I'm at the moment going, yeah, okay. It's not necessarily pushing me to go, right, I should do this. Now, if you then want to question, well, how come I don't have that want? That's the conversation you have between you and your subconscious. Now, people go, what do you mean you and your subconscious? You're not two different people. I meant your conscious and your subconscious. Because your conscious are going, I should do this. And your subconscious will go, why? And then that's the dialogue you have. It might be difficult, might sound funny, might sound a bit counterintuitive, but that's where your answers are. And that's when you answer that want, you'll get the things as a natural byproduct.
Yeah, that's something I'm tapping into at the minute, the subconscious and the conscious. I get a little bit confused with it, but I kind of got the drift of it. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's something I'm looking into at the minute, actually. And quantum physics, which is blowing my brain.
I know someone that is an expert in that, and we've done a few lives on that topic. She's able to articulate very simple examples into this mind-blowing way to explain it. So I'll give you more info on that, and indeed I might share it on the promos for this so that people can check it out as well.
Okay.
I realise we've got a few minutes left, so if I could just bring the pointer back to music, right? So I think there are a couple of songs left on your list you wanted to share.
I've got two songs left, three songs left. So when I was in the Christianity rehab, we was made to listen to songs, and there was one song I think is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard from a woman. It's called "It Is Well With My Soul." And when I was cleaning there, I was practicing Christianity, and I actually did think everything was well with my soul. It's called "It Is Well with My Soul" by Christine DeMarco, and it's the
Okay.
most beautiful song for 6 minutes. You could just listen, you could cry, or you could smile. It's just one of them ones, yeah. And it was
Wow.
absolutely
Okay.
beautiful. It's almost like a meditative sort of song. You'd like pray or meditate to it. And another song
Wow.
is called Yeshua. It'd be hard to find because there's so many different versions of it. It's about
Oh yeah.
Jesus, but it's such a beautiful. It's got a bit of a drum and bass beat to it, but a beautiful tune to it too. And I like that because I am a bit of a follower of Jesus. I'm not a Christian. I just love his teachings.
Okay.
And that was a good song. So my final song is "Freedom" by Pharrell Williams, and I like that because I have finally broken free from 22 years of heroin addiction, homelessness, street begging, suicidal thoughts and attempts, and I'm living a life of freedom. I live in Bali. I'm a life coach, so I'm an entrepreneur. I have 3 other streams of income, and I'm now in a position where I can employ people to work for me. And this is not an advert. This is not an advert to try and get clients, but I'm proud of myself that I can now employ people to work for me. And I'm proud of myself that I've managed to do all of this from where I was to where I am now. Like I said, sometimes I still pinch myself, but there is a simple technique to it. Louise Hay says it. Life is very simple. What you give, you get back. And it's true. If you give out kindness and love all the time, you're going to start receiving it, and opportunities come everywhere. She's got another saying, one of my favorite quotes: golden opportunities are everywhere. You know, so something might come from this. I don't know. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does. You never know with these things. Do you know what I mean? And I'm glad you've recorded this. I'm glad you've recorded this because I haven't written it down, but I've taken a lot of value from you, which I will probably add to my coaching actually. So I can't wait to watch this again.
Brilliant. I'm glad it served its purpose in that regard. I mean, the point you make about what you give, you receive back, that it's a great sentiment to have, because what I think it leads you onto, and again, this is only from practicing, and some days it works, some days it doesn't, but introduce you to the idea of just give. Actually, somebody put it in a decent way as well on a fellow coach, saying you don't need to just give to receive. You can also give from abundance. The idea that you don't have to give your last penny or your last whatever it might be. Some people of a certain age might remember you give your last Rolo. Anyway, a bit random. But you don't have to just always expect things back, and that's again a counterintuitive thing, because it's the whole a lot of that might be ensconced in behaviours like people pleasing. The idea that I'll just make them happy, and then especially when you're trying to form relationships, if I make them happy, I might look attractive to them, and that's why I might get stuff back, that kind of thing. It's but if you even take it a step further by just giving because it resonates with your values, and you think it's in your judgment the best kind of thing you can do without harming anyone, not going all hippie, but it's take this show for example. I'm not at the moment it's not necessarily a money making thing, but it's just there to give people a stage to share their stories. It's a means of connecting. It's a means of music is pretty much there for 99% of people. So by watching this, people will introduce themselves to myself, yourself, the music you're offering, and that's how these stories start. And it's from a place of just, as you said, giving. And whatever I receive back, I just take that as a bonus. The bonus I get from this is, it's not necessarily pounds in my account, but it's the connection you get with people, the new music that you learning more about the people that are in your network that are influential, and you want to tap into them and share the space like yourself. That's exactly it. Honestly, when I put your advert out there, loads of people came and go, I can't wait to hear this, because they know about you already, but it's the idea that this is a unique platform, that it's an idea that people seem to be clicking with. So it's just as you said, those simple ideas. Yes, give, and if you receive back, great. But when you kick off to give to receive, it's a really cool way to go.
Yeah, well, can I, if I can just finish off on this, if I've got time?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
I'll give you an example, right? Where I live, there's a building site, and the locals here don't get paid very much money at all, right?
Right.
They don't use diggers or machines. They dig out all the trenches by hand. There was about 8 of them. And I was watching them every day, sweating. They work from like 7 in the morning, sometimes to 8 at night, because I can hear them drilling,
Probably in like the hot conditions as well, right?
Yeah, and so English money here is a lot of money to there.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went and bought them 8 bottles of cold water, and I gave them £5 each, which is a week's wages to them. And they were so grateful. You could see the love in their eyes. And I knew for a fact I'm getting nothing back. You know what I mean? But I just felt like, as a mark of respect, because in England, you've got all the tools, you've got everything. Life's quite easy. People call themselves grafters in England on building sites. You ain't seen nothing like people graft here, digging holes with... They didn't even use shovels. The tools they use are completely different to English. And I just felt like blessing them. It's like a blessing. Bless people when you can. Do you know what I mean? And of course I'm not going to get nothing back from that, but it gave me a good feeling that I could do it.
Again, it probably aligns with your values, right? Acts of kindness, acts of altruism. You know, it's not coming from a place of, you know, superiority, proving your worth or this kind of thing, or ego. Yeah, it's just like, you know, so they're doing a hard job. You know, it's you know, then they say I haven't got all the tools, and it's just your little bit to help them out and say thank you. And you know, if a lot more of us carried that same sentiment, then you know, I think we'd be all heading in the same kind of direction. You know.
Yeah. And all I'm trying to do is just trying to make a little bit of difference in the world. That's it. If I can help a couple of people, I'm happy. Absolutely. And that's it, my friend.
That's exactly it. As you said, like, this is where, you know, we fall into that trap maybe sometimes of we all need to be racing towards something, and that something is dictated by, well, what's everybody else up to? You know, and we define a lot of what we say, do, think, and behave by that parameter, and that's where I think we get stuck. But when we take that time to just ask ourselves, whatever situation we might be in, even just to suspend, actually not even suspend reality for a second, because you often, you know, you hear the valid excuse that people have, but where, you know, I've got family to look after, I've got kids to look after, where's my time? It's like, absolutely, I'm not going to deny that and go, right, no, sod them all. But it's like, well, there are little ways that you can start with if you wanted to, because it all sounds, you know, glamorous and nice that if we get to do our own thing. You know, the main thing I say to people, that what I do is that I'm not the richest guy in the world. I don't earn the most money in the world for, you know, compared to others in my space, but it's the freedom I get to do things like this.
Yes.
And that's something you can't really put a monetary value on. And yeah, look, it's again that balance where, like, you know, in our space today, you know, you rarely can get by with, you know, next to no money. But, you know, there's little things that you can keep doing and keep working on to, you know, act on wherever you are in that, in your space. So, and that doesn't come it doesn't come from just an overnight thing where you go, right, I'm going to change tack and do everything. It's about that. Initially, it might even about that key questioning. Okay, what do I want? Do I have the courage to do it? And if I don't, how can I do that? It's that space and time to ask yourself that. And people go, oh, I can't be asked with that. It's like, yeah, but if you can't, that's fine. But if you want that true change, then look, the point of a tip, a trick, a hack, or that kind of thing is what it says. You know, it's a quick shortcut to, you know, an immediate problem. Again, to finish on an analogy my coach said, is like, you asking for a shortcut to this work is like asking Google Maps, right, what's the quickest way to get from A to B? And it will tell you based on traffic, mode of transport. Then it would be you going, no, give me another quicker way. And Google would be like, what are you talking about? I just gave you the quickest way. Yeah. The work is the shortcut. It's not to make it insurmountable or unachievable. It's just, again, the idea that this is a long-lasting, never-ending journey. You'll always keep learning. You'll always still make mistakes, like we said before. Like anxiety will still be around, but it's like you've now got a more learned experience to show to show and realize your own possibilities, and that's I think, all that we're at. Ben, look, our hour is up already. Like I always say on this show, I can't believe how quick this bloody hour goes. Well,
I really enjoyed that, mate. Thanks. Hopefully we could do something again in the future.
No, absolutely. And do you just want to give a shout out to people where they can find you?
So my Instagram is Ben.Anthony Hornsby. You may find an old one, but if you check my stories and my posts, you'll see their latest, or Ben Hornsby on Facebook. It's all positivity. There's no negativity there. Any negativity, you're blocked. Same with Instagram. All positivity there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Ben, thanks so much for being on the show.
I do use other platforms, but not really for coaching. It's just more a bit of my time off and a bit of fun. So I ain't really going to give you them ones.
Maybe not just yet. Let's stick to the other two first. But Ben, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Take care. Thanks for this. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. Please do like the video or podcast, comment with your thoughts below, subscribe to the channel, and sign up to be a guest on the show. Feel supersonic.